Good morning. This is Samuel Jacob Kirschner, voice of the Breeze, welcoming you to our Saturday morning Breeze Community Meditation Hangout. Well, this has been quite a week, to say the least. So much has happened, and yet it met us all where we are. Yes, this election season, what has not been said about it? It has been one of the most gruesome elections that I remember, and I am only in this country for 42 years only. And I don't remember a time that was so loaded and toxic and in the face as this time. But then, how can I forget that I wasn't exactly born in a picnic, and that in the last century, only 70 some years ago, there was Holocaust in Europe. And in this country alone, there was slavery. There was genocide. The history hasn't been a picnic exactly. So things, terrible things, horrific things have been happening and are happening all the time. And of course, it is natural to be apprehensive. Oh, is this going to be one of those times? Is this going to happen right here in the country that is supposed to be the freest and the most progressive country in the world? So our nervous system is filled with trauma and memories. Our DNA, even though sometimes it's not conscious, our DNA is loaded with atrocities, with post-traumatic stress. I think we all have post-traumatic stress. The proof is in the pudding. Yeah, in South Sudan, it's maybe more extreme. In Syria, it's more extreme right now. In Israel, in Palestine, there are spots in the world in which post-traumatic stress is taking the best of us. But here too, I think a lot of the symptoms that we saw coming up in this season are symptoms of post-traumatic stress. People and young people and children are reacting by, falling apart. A lot of fear about what's going to happen next. This is too reminiscent of things we learned about and that some of us have experienced. How do you deal with that? So we know that the knee-jerk reaction of how we deal with it, especially in a democratic country like the United States, is you speak up and you tweet and you post it on Facebook and on all the social media. There's so many outlets today, people really express themselves. And in a way, it's wonderful that we have these outlets, that we can voice our voices and can speak about how we feel and what it brings up. But then there's another component that we should not forget. That life meets us where we are. In other words, who you were before this election season started is going to continue to react and to respond from that place where you are. So if you are an anxious person, if you have all kinds of issues, mental and emotional issues, you're going to react from there. That's one part. That's the part of our brain that is called many names, but I'll call it the reptile brain. The sympathetic nervous system reacts to everything from where it is geared to react. So if you're a person with high anxiety, gets triggered easily, including people who have been running, including the president-elect. We saw how he reacted sometimes to things that were said. He's been called lack of impulse control. So, but we all have something going on around there. I mean, how many people can say, I have impeccable impulse control? So it's back to the old story, and that an eye for an eye, and we're all going to be blind. So there is a place in which that reactivity has to be checked. Of course, only if you want. Why would you want to examine your knee-jerk reactions? Socrates said about 4,000 years ago that the unexamined life is not worth living. And I think he spoke exactly about that, is that we cannot afford to be at the mercy of our reaction, because our reaction is not chosen. Some of it is knee-jerk. It is almost like a Pavlovian dog who, you introduce a trigger and the dog reacts. And maybe in this time, one of the things that we really need to learn from this time is how important it is for us to take care of ourselves in a way that no government, no authority outside of yourself can. Nobody can take care of your thinking. They try all the time. The media is trying constantly to induce states of trance in which we respond the way they have studied and prepared. There are strategies of how to get people to react in a certain way. But real power is the power of responding, responsibility, the ability to respond on your term, after you have taken care of yourself, after you have taken care of your fears and your anxieties and your triggers, which is a matter of awareness. And in my case, and in many of the people I work with and know, it is breath awareness. It is connecting your breath to whatever it is that comes at you, including challenges, including setbacks. Everything has breath in it. Everything has the life force in it. In the head, we can deem certain things dead, unacceptable. I don't want to touch it. I don't want to have anything to do with her. I don't want to engage in any, no flexibility, rigidity. But in everything, in every loss, what does it come down to? It comes down to emotions. It comes down to energy in motion. There is energy in everything, including in this device that I'm speaking to right now, including in my thoughts, including in my fears, including in threats, including in people who are harming you. There is a place in which there is a connection. There's a connection with the life force, with the breath. And if we lose that connection, we really do ourselves in. We put ourselves in a bubble, a mental, emotional bubble, in which we are isolated in our own sphere, in our own world, in our own opinion. And we keep broadcasting it, or not, or just thinking it, and we end up harming ourselves. Stress is very detrimental. There is so much about stress right now that we are learning how much it affects our lives, our health, our well-being. So, take care of yourself. Take care of your stress. There is a stress level that is not contingent on who won the election, who and who didn't. At the end of the day, the president-elect is not responsible for your happiness, for your well-being, for your relationship with yourself. You know, I posted about it on Facebook. I try to post every day something about my personal experience, which at this point I like to share in a way of inspiring others to take care of themselves, perhaps in a skillful way. It comes down to skills, because it's affected my life so much, and I have turned around some very, very difficult, dire situations in my life. I turned them around because I've learned to take care of myself, particularly around connecting with the breath. And at this point, my life is about sharing it with others, those, of course, who want and who are ready for it. So, you know, this week, Tuesday night, I came home and my roommate was looking at the elections, you know, the states, all the different states. It doesn't really much interest me, so I went to bed early, and then I woke up at around 1 a.m. And I went on Facebook, and I found out actually through my Israeli friends on Facebook who won the election. And I had a terrible reaction. I mean, I felt very, very shocked and in despair and like a letdown, terrible letdown. And I hung out in that for, I don't know, a good maybe 15 minutes or so. And then I remembered, I can't stay here. I got to take care of myself. I got to take care of myself. And I started breathing to the chimes of coherent breathing, which is a slowed down breathing, By the way, these chimes are being played right now in the background in a very subtle way, but I'm going to put them up a little bit. So I started to breathe, to regulate my breathing and slow it down, to connect it to the chimes. And then I started to play some music, and I did my 5 steps, which are basically shaking, flowing, standing, walking, and dancing. And I did it in bed, basically really connecting to the breath, to the pace, connecting the pace of my breath with the music and moving accordingly. And I have to tell you, within 15 minutes, which is 12 minutes is usually the length of these 5 steps. Within 15 minutes, I felt so different. I was back to myself. I wasn't out of my body. I wasn't abandoning myself with fear and with negative predictions. I was really present. I was in the moment, in my body, in the joy of living, in the joy I was born with, which does not depend on any external circumstances. It can be affected for sure, but there I turned it around with this practice. And now the difference was that, a friend texted me at 4 a.m. and was very distraught. And I said, let's meet. And we met at 5 o'clock and we had breakfast and we talked and we connected and he spoke about his anguish and I listened, but I wasn't triggered and I wasn't reactive. And there was somebody on the street who said, "Yay, Trump!" And at first I was shocked for a moment. Oh my God, there are people who actually enjoy this. And I was able to tolerate my reaction and not to go like, get engaged with him. What do you mean, yay, Trump? Hey, the man loves the outcome. Maybe we need to make space for those people who love what's happening. Hey, it's a free country. Not everybody has to think like us. But you can't do that unless you have that inner space. And that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about having skills, taking care of yourself, not being a reaction waiting to happen. So it looks like my hands are going to be pretty filled because I've been getting a lot of calls and inquiries about sharing this word. I think people need it more than ever. So I'd like to go into the 5 steps of the Breaze and share with you a way that you can take care of yourself by connecting your breath with the breath in everything while moving and while listening to music. So, will you start paying attention to your breath and breathing in to the higher chime, breathing out to the lower chime, breathing in to the higher chime, breathing out to the lower chime, all the breath is done through the nose, both the inhale and the exhale. And it's very calm breathing. Don't try to breathe deep. Just try to breathe coherently with ease. Breathing in, breathing out, and starting to accompany the breathing with some shaking. What's going on? So start shaking from the inside out. This is shaking and awakening. So we want to awaken the numbness in us. And we're doing it by micro moving from the breath and connecting to your body as you're shaking and as you are breathing, which is different than efforting at it. We really want to do it from the breath. It has a good effect on the brain. Breathing and moving and synchronizing the breath with music. So we are multitasking here, but we're doing it from the breath. You'll hear me say that a lot. Do it from the breath, not from your head, not from your stress. Of course, you can do it a little bit more robustly if you are so inclined, but the results will be good both ways if you just do it, even visualizing it. If you can do even what I'm doing now, you can visualize it and still it will have that effect. And now we are moving to the second step, which is flowing like a river and letting go. So letting go of struggle. Don't struggle with your own breath. Surrender the struggle into this flowing movement and breathing with ease combined to the music. So in a sense, being one with the breath, the movement, and the music. Notice how much more at ease you feel when you surrender to the flow rather than have to control it. This is great for controlling. Let go of control. It consumes so much energy. And by doing it now, like this, your brain is changing. It's rewiring. Preparing now to shift into standing like a tree and making space. So I'm going to stand up to show you how this can be done standing. With your knees bent and your spine straight but not rigid, and your hands in an open position, because you want to be able here to breathe love, which means to ask the breath to move the breath to the places in your body that are feeling constricted, achy, or numb. So this is really allowing, invoking, asking the breath to move and energize and wash clear and heal the places in your body that are feeling challenged. And we eventually can do that with everything in our lives. Wash clear our issues, our struggles, our stresses, our pains. Self-healing. Open your heart to the breath and have a heart for yourself. Have compassion, empathy to exactly where you are. And put your right hand on your heart and your left hand on your belly and start walking like an elephant with grace. Again, you can do it in place if you cannot actually walk. You can even do it in bed, visualizing it and just moving your feet ever so slightly, but remembering to be grateful for your life right now and walking your talk. Walking the talk means that you take your act on the road, and each step and each breath and each moment you are practicing being present, being available, finding your authentic pace. Being one with the breath, being the breath. Let the breath walk you now. And being the breath is dancing. At this point, you want to dance from the breath, from being the breath rather than from some idea of dancing or some posturing. Be the 5-year-old who was born joyful. No matter who won the election, At this moment, in this breath, you can dance for your life from the joy you were born with, your original self, the present. Can you give that to yourself? The freedom of being who you are, no matter who is the president or what's going on around you. You are free to be love. How do you feel? The proof is in the pudding. If you feel that this is real and you want to learn more of that, this could become your daily practice. And it really comes down to that. Having a daily practice, a breathing daily practice that you can always go back to. That is your ground zero. And no matter what happens around you, no matter what the circumstances are, you can always go back to that place because that is your safe and sacred place. So if you'd like to know more about that, if you'd like to develop a daily practice, that is my passion. I am going to be doing an intensive 3-hour workshop here at the Gym for the Soul. It's been called many names before. On Sunday, the 27th, right after Thanksgiving, from 3 to 6 p.m. And we're going to also make it available on Skype for people perhaps from other countries, other cities. We're going to take advantage of some of the technology that's available, but we want to do it here as, physically. We want to do it here, and you can learn more about that on my website, www.thebreeze.com. And on Facebook and yada, 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 all the other places. I'm just right now present and free and happy to be alive. And so hard for me to remember all the details, but you can learn about it by going to the website. And I'm going to be back here next Saturday at 8 a.m. New York time. This is Samuel Jacob Kirschner, voice of the Breeze, wishing you a day filled with joy, oxygen, and ease. Take care of yourself.